The Griffin. There are many variants of the Griffin, but we'll start with the 1N. The 1N is like the standard Griffin when you don't know anything else. It's got a PPC and an LRM-10, and it has a jump jets also. It makes for a great guard or a hunter. It's relatively fast and relatively powerful for its size, so it's a pretty good mech, and it's pretty popular. It's also one of the original mechs of the original oldest forms of BattleTech. Also, the 1N is the version that you find in the original 3025 TRO, and it's got a storied past. And when I say storied, I mean not just in the game, but in the real world too, with lawsuits and IP and etc. If you just take a look at the spec sheet here, you can see it's fairly well armored. Also has a reasonable amount of rear torso armor. So again, serving well for its function of being able to jump around and maneuver, especially if it's functioning as a guard or a long-range hunter type mech. You'll also notice that it's got jump jets in the torsos and heat sinks in the feet. This is the correct place to put these items, because if you're standing in water, jump jets in legs don't work, and heat sinks in the torso don't give you bonuses. So depth 1 water means you want to have heat sinks in the feet and jump jets in your torso. As one of the original mechs of BattleTech, it also means that you have these Nova Combat books for it. How the Nova Combat books work is you basically give the book to the other player, and they give you their book. And then you flip pages based on your actions, and you mark down armor and heat on a marker sheet. That's called your pilot card. This is a fully deterministic game. There's no dice rolling, but the mechs have capabilities which kind of correspond to their stats in BattleTech, and you see that in their choices for actions, as well as how much armor and heat they can handle. And so they kind of play. There's actually even complicated rules for multiplayer and like 2-on-1 and repair and repeated battles, and there's even pilot XP and stuff like that. It's quite an interesting game system, but in the days of video games and first-person shooters, you don't need this as much, but this is still a really cool retro gaming system. The next version that we'll discuss is the 1A. This is actually the original early Star League version. It used primitive armor, and this is the original version of the Griffin before it was refined. That is the prototype. It started off at 60 tons. Now, the good part is game-wise, it's only 1,000 battle value to try out this version, and but its combat performance you will see later on. Also, its move is slow because it uses relatively primitive equipment and engines and things like that. Its armor, it has a lot of armor, except it's low quality armor, so even though it's 14.5 tons, it's not as many points as you expect. And it's also got a prototype PPC, which is not as good as a regular PPC, but it does have a regular LRM-5. So, I mean, it works, and you will see, and it's cheaper than a 1N. But again, you will see how effective it is in the combat sims at the end of the video. Next up, the Steiner, or the 1S version of the Griffin. I always imagine that this is what was, these are the versions that are standing next to the Archon's throne. I said as it is the Steiner version of the Griffin, 2492, so available all eras, didn't go extinct. Battle value 1253. It does have the standard armor and heat sinks. It has more close-in weapons, so instead of a PPC, it's got the medium lasers and a large laser. And It's got the LRM5, so a little bit closer in damage, a little more effective at nearby ranges, and also close up than the 1N, but otherwise fairly similar. Okay, next up, the Steiner Davian version. This one was it's the -1DS. This one's got more Lost Tech or Star League tech in it. Started in 3049. So it's got the XL engine, extra heat sinks. So now it's got more capabilities. So it's got the LRM-20 and a large pulse laser and case and 2 tons of ammo. Again, we will go and see how this does in the sims at the end of the video. There's a variant of note, which is called the Sparky, or the 1E. This one was technically not a variant, but the individual pilot's mech from the 5th Donegal Guards. So it's like a customized mech. I'm claiming it was year 3037 when it was customized, but it may have been slightly off from that. I know it was before 3039, but I'm not sure what year. It's got mostly a standard form of armor, 10.5 tons of armor. It's mostly the same as a regular Griffin. It's got different weapons laid out, lots of medium lasers and a PPC, so no ammo, so it can run hotter without fear of exploding. Again, you will see how it performs in the combat calculations later. Next up, it's the Royal Griffin, the GRF-2N. That's a 2751 mech. It still has the old Star League tech, the ER PPCs. It's got 2 SRM6s, and it's got a Guardian ECM. And it's also got case protected ammo, ferrofibrous, endosteel, etc. So very costly in battle value. It's like 1600 battle value. It's more like an awesome. And it's but it's also got more combat capability. How it actually does, I'll show later. Finally, we have the Merrick version, the 3049 era mech. So 3050 games, early clan invasion. This one is, again, some Lost Tech upgrades. So the XL engine, 14 double heat sinks, and the PPC is now ER PPC, and the LRM is an LRM-20. Extra ammo, etc. So this one is the basically a pumped up Griffin. There are several other variants, and you can go ahead and check out Sarna Wiki and you can see and read about them and stuff, but I have not implemented them and simulated them. But I am sure that they all kind of follow similar themes to later and greater technologies, of course higher battle value. I did implement the 3M, the 6CS, the 6S, the 3N, and the 5M, though, after I finished the Star League 2N, so those should be in the combat sims. That 3M has a ER PPC and LRM-20 and a small laser. The 6CS has 12 tons of armor. It's got XL engine endosteel, but not ferrofibrous. It's got 2 ER medium lasers, an ER PPC, a Guardian ECM, and an LRM-15, so it's just kind of loaded for bear. It's also very expensive too. Its battle value is almost 1700, 1690. GRF-6S is another version. It's a little bit more tamed down, but similar to that 6CS. It's 1781 battle value. It's got 2 ER medium lasers, ER PPC, and an LRM-15. Then the GRF-3N has got the full works of ferrofibrous endosteel XL engine. It's got an LRM-10, an ER PPC, and a small laser. And an LRM is enhanced LRM. It was easy to code up, so I just did it. Some of the higher tech weapons I can't code up easily because they're not similar to previous things I've implemented, but that one I could. Then there's the GRF-5M. That one has got a small laser, a light Gauss rifle, and an LRM-10. Otherwise ferrofibrous armor, endosteel XL engine. It's mostly similar to a standard Griffin build, except it's only 1200 battle value, but it's a 3066 design. So here are the final results for various Griffins. You can see here that the greatest win rates are indeed occurring for generally the higher tech versions. And the lowest tech version, this one here, the 60-ton one, it's not too bad for, especially considering how low a battle value it has. So you get a lot of dynamic range in battle value. Like on the low it's 1024, and the high it's 1781. So Griffins, you can pretty much pick any size of a Griffin that you want. And if you want like really high performance per ton, then of course you go for the Griffin 3N, which is of course the most futuristic one. If you want maybe an earlier era version, then maybe this one here, 11.7. That one is the Griffin 3M. It's still a relatively early year. It's the 30-50 range, I believe. Wins per C-bill, though, these advanced expensive ones don't do so well because they've got the XL engines. But look at that thing. Per C-bill, some of these primitive versions are doing well. This one and this one. Let's see what this one is. Per C-bill, the Griffin 1E Sparky is the best. And then another one that's really good per C-bill is the 1S version. Then per battle value, though, we got some winners here. It's actually that 1A is doing pretty well. Being that it's so cheap, it actually does pretty well. Even with primitive technology and the flawed PPC, the primitive PPC. The best is this one. Seems like these are all similar out here. The Griffin 3N. Of course, it's high tech, so it's kind of unfair. But here's a lower tech version. Let's see which one this one is. The Griffin 3M. Well, it's not that much lower tech. And I guess the winner is actually the 1A. So per battle value, you're doing pretty well if you pick the 1A, even though it's like a crappy original Star League mech with primitive prototyping. It does pretty well, but you may not want to risk it. So then you might want to do better off. Just the 1N is pretty good here, so you can kind of stick to the known, tried and true version here, the 1N. So that's it. So depending on whether you want battle value, tons, or C-bills, you can look at those numbers and decide which one's the best one.